Dr. Sarah Whitlock's hands trembled as she stared at her phone screen. 3:47 a.m., one accidentally dialed number, and the low, dangerous voice that answered with, "You have 30 seconds to explain why a human knows this line exists." Her breath caught. The wolf on her examination table whimpered, blood matting its dark fur, and she found her voice. I'm sorry, I must have." The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd grabbed the wrong number. In her panic to save the injured animal, she'd reached for what she thought was the wildlife emergency hotline posted on her corkboard. Instead, she'd dialed the number from that strange business card, the one she'd found tucked under her clinic's door mat 3 weeks ago. Simple black cardstock, a phone number, nothing else. She'd almost thrown it away a dozen times. The wolf whined again, dragging her attention back to what mattered. "Okay, sweetheart," she murmured, pulling on fresh gloves. "Let's get you fixed up." The animal was huge, bigger than any wolf she'd seen in her 5 years running the Blackwood Wildlife Clinic. Its eyes tracked her movements with an intelligence that made her skin prickle, but she pushed the feeling aside. She'd spent too many sleepless nights lately. Exhaustion was making her imagine things. She worked quickly, cleaning the deep gash along the wolf's shoulder, stitching carefully. The animal stayed eerily still, barely needing the mild sedative she'd administered. By the time she finished, dawn was breaking through her clinic windows, painting the walls in shades of amber and gold. Sarah covered the wolf with a blanket and slumped against the counter, scrubbing her hands over her face. Coffee. She needed coffee and about 12 hours of sleep, in that order. The wolf's breathing had evened out, peaceful now. She'd keep it under observation for a few hours, then contact the actual wildlife services. She grabbed her phone to set a reminder and noticed the call log still glowing on screen. That number. That voice. "You have 30 seconds to explain why a human knows this line exists." A chill ran down her spine. Something about the way he'd said human, like she was the unusual one in this equation. She shook her head. Wrong number, weird coincidence. Nothing more. Sarah grabbed her coffee mug and headed toward the clinic's front entrance, planning to flip the closed sign to open. She had 2 appointments this morning, both routine checkups that she could probably handle without falling asleep standing up. She unlocked the door and pulled it open. Then froze. Her coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Wolves. Everywhere. They filled her parking lot, the grassy area beyond, the tree line at the edge of her property. Massive black wolves, at least 100 of them, sitting in perfect silence. Their eyes gleamed in the early morning light, all fixed on her. Not one of them moved. Not one of them made a sound. Sarah's lungs forgot how to work. This wasn't possible. Wolves didn't gather like this. They didn't sit in formation like soldiers awaiting orders. They didn't stare at humans with that kind of focused, deliberate attention. And they were all completely, utterly still. At the center of the gathering, directly in line with her front door, stood a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black from head to toe. Dark hair fell to his collar, and even from this distance, she could see his eyes, silver, bright as moonlight, and locked on her face. He began walking toward her clinic. The wolves didn't move, but she felt their attention shift, tracking his movement like a tide following the moon. Sarah's survival instincts finally kicked in. She grabbed the door handle, ready to slam it shut and call, "Who?" The police? Animal control? The National Guard? Dr. Whitlock. The man's voice carried across the space between them, the same voice from the phone. Low, commanding, absolutely certain of being obeyed. "Step back from the door. We need to talk." "I'm calling the police," she said, hating how her voice shook. "No, you're not." He was closer now, close enough that she could see the sharp angles of his face, the predatory grace in the way he moved. Everything about him screamed danger, from the casual confidence in his stride to the cold assessment in those silver eyes. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What is this?" He stopped at the base of her clinic steps, tilting his head slightly. The gesture was distinctly inhuman, the way the wolf on her table had looked at her earlier. My name is Thorn Blackwood. Alpha King of the Northern Pack. He gestured to the sea of wolves surrounding them. And you summoned us with a call that should never have been made by human hands. Sarah's mind reeled. Alpha King? Pack. What are you talking about? The number you called belongs to Pack emergency lines. It's used only for life or death situations requiring the full Pack's immediate response. His eyes narrowed. And yet a human veterinarian manages to dial it at 3 in the morning. So I'll ask you once, Dr. Whitlock, how did you get that number, and who sent you to spy on us? Spy? I didn't, she forced herself to breathe, to think. It was an accident. I had a wounded wolf, I needed help, and I grabbed the wrong number from my board. I swear, I didn't know what it was. A wounded wolf, he repeated, his tone flat. Yes. Someone left it at my door a few hours ago. I patched it up, it's inside, resting. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. He turned his head slightly, and one of the wolves stood, moving forward with fluid grace. It climbed the steps, and Sarah's heart nearly stopped as it brushed past her into the clinic. Wait. But Thorn was already following the wolf inside, leaving her no choice but to trail after them or be left standing in her doorway like an idiot. The wolf padded straight to the examination room. When Sarah and Thorn entered, the animal was standing beside the table where her patient still slept under the blanket. Thorn's expression went granite hard. He moved to the table and pulled back the blanket, revealing the stitched wound on the sleeping wolf's shoulder. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in a voice that could have cut steel, "This is my brother." Sarah's stomach dropped. "You're, what?" "My brother. Marcus." He looked at her, and the fury in his eyes made her take an involuntary step back. "He disappeared yesterday during a hunt. We've been searching for him all night." The wolf who'd entered with them made a low sound, almost like a whine. "I didn't know," Sarah said quickly. "I just found him at my door. I thought he was a regular wolf. I was trying to help." "A regular wolf?" Thorn's laugh was bitter. "There's nothing regular about any of this, Dr. Whitlock." He placed a hand on the sleeping wolf's head, his touch surprisingly gentle. The animal's eyes fluttered open, the same intelligent, too aware eyes that had watched Sarah earlier. "Marcus," Thorn said quietly. "Can you change?" The wolf stared at him for a moment, then closed its eyes again. Thorn's jaw tightened. He turned to Sarah. "What did you give him?" "Just a mild sedative." "He should be." "How mild?" "It'll wear off in a few hours." "Why?" "Because he needs to shift back to human form to heal properly, and he can't do that while sedated." Thorn's voice was controlled, but she heard the edge beneath it. The worry. Sarah's world tilted sideways. "Human form," she repeated slowly. You're telling me that wolves can turn into humans? That werewolves are real?" Thorn looked at her like she was a particularly slow child. "You're a veterinarian on the edge of Blackwood Forest. You've been treating our kind for 5 years, whether you knew it or not. And you're telling me you never suspected?" She thought about the unusually large wolves she'd treated. The ones who watched her with too much understanding. The injuries that healed faster than they should. The strange business card that had appeared at her door. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Now you're catching on." The wolf on the table, Marcus, made a soft sound. Thorn leaned closer, murmuring something too low for Sarah to hear. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to process everything. Werewolves. Real werewolves. 100 of them currently sitting in her parking lot. "I didn't mean to," she started. "That doesn't matter." Thorn straightened, fixing her with that silver stare. "You made the call. You brought the entire Northern Pack to your door. And according to our laws, that means you know too much about our world to walk away without consequences." Her blood ran cold. What kind of consequences? Before he could answer, a howl rose from outside. Then another. Within seconds, the air filled with the sound of 100 wolves singing to the morning sky. Thorne's expression shifted, becoming something harder. More dangerous. "That," he said quietly, "is them acknowledging the summons. Accepting the call to gather." He moved toward her, and she had nowhere to go, trapped between him and the wall. "Which means, Dr. Sarah Whitlock, whether you intended it or not, you've just become the Northern Pack's problem. And we protect our problems very carefully." "I don't understand." "You will." He stopped close enough that she could see the flecks of ice in his silver eyes. "Because until we figure out how you got that number and whether you're a threat to our people, you're not going anywhere. Welcome to our world, Doctor." If this story has kept your heart a little awake tonight, you can quietly tap subscribe so the next chapter finds you when you're ready. If not, that's alright too. Tell us in the comments what moments touched you most. Chapter 2. The wolves outside had gone quiet, but Sarah could feel their presence like a physical weight pressing against the clinic walls. She stood frozen against the examination room wall while Thorne Blackwood studied his brother with the intensity of a man reading a death sentence. "These stitches," he said finally, his fingers hovering over the wound without touching it. "They're perfect. Not just competent, perfect." He glanced at her, those silver eyes sharp enough to cut. "How long did this take you?" Sarah swallowed hard. "Maybe 40 minutes. I had to clean the wound first, make sure there was no debris." 40 minutes. He straightened, his full attention on her now. It felt like standing in the path of a storm. Most veterinarians would have taken twice that long, been twice as cautious with an animal this size. "You worked on him like you'd done it 100 times before." "I'm good at my job," she said, lifting her chin despite the fear coursing through her veins. "That's not a crime. Isn't it?" A new voice came from the doorway. Another man entered, this one leaner than Thorne but with the same predatory grace. His dark hair was pulled back, and his eyes were a lighter shade of silver. "She's had access to our kind for years. Who's to say she hasn't been selling information? Taking samples?" "Marcus," Thorne said, a warning in his tone. So this was Marcus. The beta. Second in command. And clearly not happy about her continued breathing. "I'm serious, Thorne." Marcus moved closer, studying the unconscious wolf on the table. "Look at this work. This isn't beginner's luck. She's done this before, probably dozens of times. And we never knew." He turned to Sarah, his expression cold. "How many wolves have you treated, Dr. Whitlock?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice wavered. "Don't lie to him." Thorne's command cracked through the room like a whip. "We can hear your heartbeat increase. We can smell the fear and deception. You might as well be shouting the truth." Sarah pressed harder against the wall, wishing she could disappear through it. "I've treated wolves before. Large ones, like this. But I thought they were wolf-dog hybrids, or maybe." "How many?" Marcus repeated. She closed her eyes, thinking back through the years. The enormous dogs that their owners brought in with strange injuries. The ones that healed impossibly fast. The ones that watched her with those too intelligent eyes. 20, she whispered. Maybe 30. Over the past 3 years. The silence that followed was deafening. When she opened her eyes, both men were staring at her with expressions she couldn't read. Marcus looked like he wanted to throttle her. Thorne looked, calculating. 30 of our kind, Marcus said slowly, and you never once thought something was off? I did think something was off. The words burst out of her, propelled by exhaustion and fear and 3 years of ignored instincts. I thought it was strange that so many people in this area had wolf hybrids. I thought it was weird that they all seemed to get injured in similar ways, bites, claw marks, like they'd been fighting. I thought it was suspicious that they healed so fast I barely needed follow-up appointments. She took a shaky breath. But I'm a veterinarian, not a detective. People brought me animals that needed help, and I helped them. That's what I do. That's what you do, Thorne repeated softly. He turned to Marcus. Get Catherine. Tell her we need a blood debt assessment. Marcus's eyes widened. You can't be serious. She saved Ash's life. You know the law. The law also says we protect pack secrets at any cost, Marcus shot back. She's a security risk. She's saved 30 of our people. Thorne's voice went quiet, which somehow made it more terrifying. 30 times pack members came to her injured, vulnerable, and she healed them. 30 times she could have called animal control, could have reported unusual activity, could have done any number of things that would have exposed us. And she didn't. Because she didn't know. Didn't she? Thorne looked at Sarah again, tilting his head in that distinctly wolf-like gesture. You said you thought something was off. You suspected these weren't normal animals. But you kept treating them anyway. You kept their secrets, even if you didn't fully understand what those secrets were. Why? Sarah hadn't expected the question. She fumbled for an answer, found only the truth. Because they needed help. Because the people who brought them and loved them. Because. She trailed off, then forced herself to continue. Because on some level, I think I knew that if I asked too many questions, they'd stop coming. And people, animals, would suffer for it. Something shifted in Thorne's expression. Not quite approval, but close to it. Blood debt, he said to Marcus. Now. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue more, but he gave a sharp nod and disappeared through the doorway. Sarah heard the front door open and close. Alone with Thorne, relatively speaking, given the 100 wolves outside, Sarah found her voice again. What's a blood debt? Exactly what it sounds like. Thorne moved to the window, looking out at his gathered pack. You saved Ash's life. Under our laws, that creates a debt that must be honored. We owe you protection, resources, whatever you need within reason. I don't want anything. I just want to go back to my normal life. He laughed, short and bitter. Your normal life ended the moment you dialed that number. Maybe it ended 3 years ago, the first time one of us walked through your door. He turned back to her. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not. The only question is how deep we let you in, and whether you survive the experience. The casual mention of her potential death made Sarah's knees weak. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her scrubs still stained with Ash's blood. I just wanted to help, she whispered. I know. Surprisingly, Thorne's voice softened slightly. That's probably the only reason you're still breathing. The next 10 minutes passed in tense silence. Thorne stood guard over his brother while Sarah sat on the floor, trying to process everything. Werewolves. Real werewolves. She'd been treating them for years. How had she missed it? But even as she asked herself the question, memories flooded back. The client who'd insisted on paying in cash, always. The woman who'd brought in 3 different wolf dogs over 2 years, all with the same distinctive silver eyes. The man who'd carried his injured animal and barehanded despite the blood, showing no concern about being bitten. David. The memory hit her like a physical blow. David Chen, one of her regular clients. Mid-30s, always polite, always paid on time. He'd brought in a massive black wolf dog, named Shadow 4 times in the past year. Puncture wounds, mostly. A broken rib once. She looked up at Thorne. The wolves I've treated. They weren't actually wolves, were they? They were your people. In wolf form. Some of them. He studied her face. You're making connections now. Good. What else? She thought about Shadow. About the way David had talked to the animal, the way the animal had responded. The intelligence in those eyes. Oh my God, she breathed. David. David Chin. He didn't have a dog named Shadow. He was Shadow. Took you long enough. Marcus's voice came from the doorway. He'd returned with a woman, tall, silver-haired despite appearing to be only in her 40s, with the same predatory grace they all seemed to possess. Catherine, this is Dr. Whitlock. The human who's been playing medic to the pack without realizing it. Catherine moved into the room with measured steps, her gaze sweeping over Sarah with an intensity that made her want to squirm. Interesting, she murmured. Very interesting. Can you assess the debt? Thorne asked. I can try. Catherine approached the examination table, placing her hands on either side of Ash's head without touching him. She closed her eyes, and for a long moment, nothing happened. Then the air in the room changed. It felt charged, electric, like the moment before lightning struck. The wound was deep, Catherine said, her voice distant. Poisoned. Silver-tipped blade, designed to prevent healing. Her eyes snapped open, suddenly fierce. Without immediate treatment, he would have died within the hour. She didn't just save his life, she saved it from a death specifically designed for our kind. Marcus swore under his breath. Who would use silver against us? That's a question for later, Thorne said tightly. The debt? Binding, Catherine said simply. By law and blood, the pack owes her. Not just protection, sanctuary. She's saved one of the Alpha King's family. That's not a debt that can be ignored or erased. Erased? Sarah stood on shaky legs. You mean you could make me forget all of this? Catherine turned to her, and something almost like sympathy flickered in her eyes. We could. It's not pleasant, and it's not perfect, but yes. We could cloud your memories, make you think tonight was just an exhausting shift treating a normal wolf. She paused. But given the blood debt, we won't. We can't. Some of us disagree. Marcus crossed his arms. Blood debt or not, she's a security risk. She knows too much. She's known too much for 3 years, Thorne countered. And kept our secrets anyway. She didn't know they were secrets. Didn't I? Sarah surprised herself by speaking. All 3 wolves, werewolves, turned to look at her. She forced herself to continue. Maybe I didn't know exactly what you were. But I knew something was different. I knew those animals weren't normal, and I knew the people who brought them in were hiding something. And I helped anyway because... She searched for the right words. Because whatever you are, you were in pain. You needed help. That's all that mattered. Catherine smiled. It was the first warm expression Sarah had seen from any of them. You see, Marcus. She already made her choice years ago. She chose to be our ally before she even knew we existed. Or she's a very good spy, Marcus muttered, but he sounded less certain. You really think I'm some kind of undercover operative? Sarah felt a hysterical laugh building in her chest. I can barely keep my paperwork organized. I'm a veterinarian who's 3 months behind on her student loans. I'm not exactly secret agent material. Then explain this. Marcus pulled something from his pocket, the black business card. The one she'd found at her clinic. This is the Alpha King's direct emergency line. It's never written down, never distributed outside the pack's inner circle. So how did you get it? Sarah stared at the card. I told you. I found it under my door mat about 3 weeks ago. I thought it was maybe a new client, or... Someone in the pack gave this to her. Catherine took the card from Marcus, examining it closely. The question is who? And why, Thorne added, his expression darkening. Why would one of our own give a human access to our most secure line? A terrible thought occurred to Sarah. What if someone wanted me to call it? What if someone knew Ash? She stopped, the implications flooding through her mind. What if someone hurt Ash and left him at my door specifically so I'd call for help? So I'd accidentally summon the entire pack? The silence that followed was absolute. That's... Marcus started, then stopped. That's actually disturbingly plausible. Someone's testing us, Catherine said quietly. Or testing her. Or both. Thorn moved to the window again, his shoulders tense. Outside, the 100 wolves remained perfectly still, waiting for his command. We have a traitor in the pack. Someone who's willing to harm one of us to expose our secrets to a human. Someone who gave her this card knowing exactly what would happen when she used it. Or someone who wanted to introduce her to us, Catherine said thoughtfully. Consider the timing. She's been treating our people for 3 years. Building trust, proving herself trustworthy even without knowing what she was protecting. Then suddenly, she gets this card. Then Ash appears at her door, injured with silver. She calls the number in a panic, summons the pack, and here we are, forced to acknowledge her existence and her value to us. You think someone orchestrated all of this to get her officially recognized? Marcus looked skeptical. That's a hell of a gamble. Or a calculated risk by someone who understands both pack law and human nature. Catherine handed the card back to Marcus. Someone who knew that once the blood debt was established, we couldn't simply eliminate her or erase her memories. Sarah's head was spinning. Why would anyone do that? Because we need you. The words came from the doorway, and everyone turned to see a young woman entering the clinic. She couldn't have been more than 20, with long dark hair and amber eyes. Human eyes, Sarah noted. Or at least, some of us think we do. Elena, Thorn said, his voice a warning. This isn't the time. When is the time? Elena moved into the room with less of the predatory grace the others had. More human. We've been arguing about this for months, Thorn. You know the pack is changing. We have members living in the human world now, working human jobs, building human relationships. We can't just keep bleeding in the woods and hoping we heal before someone notices. We have pack healers, Marcus said, who are overwhelmed and undertrained for modern injuries. Elena gestured to Ash. He got stabbed with a silver blade. How many of our healers know how to treat silver poisoning? How many could have stitched that wound as cleanly as she did? She looked at Sarah. Some of us have known about you for a while, Dr. Whitlock. Known that you were good at what you do, that you could be trusted. We've been trying to figure out how to bring you into the fold officially without causing a pack-wide panic. By almost getting my brother killed? Thorn's voice was deadly soft. No. Elena's eyes widened. I wouldn't, she looked genuinely horrified. I left the card. I thought eventually you'd call for something minor, something we could use to start a conversation. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. But someone did get hurt, Catherine said. Ash didn't wound himself. Someone attacked him with a silver weapon, then left him at Dr. Whitlock's door. If you didn't do it, Elena, who did? The young woman shook her head helplessly. I don't know. I swear, I don't know. Thorn studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. I believe you. But this confirms what we suspected, someone else is moving pieces on the board. Someone who knew about Elena's card, who knew Sarah could be an asset, and who was willing to use Ash as bait. Why Ash specifically? Sarah asked. Why not Marcus, or any of the others I've treated? Because Ash is my youngest brother, Thorn said quietly. He's 20 years old, newly shifted, still learning control. He's the most vulnerable member of my immediate family. His jaw tightened. Attacking him sends a message. Whoever did this wanted to prove they could strike at the heart of the royal family. A low growl built in Marcus's throat. This is bigger than some rogue wolf leaving business cards. This is a direct challenge to your authority. I know. Thorn turned to Catherine. Convene the council. I want every pack member accounted for, every movement tracked for the past 48 hours. Someone hurt my brother, and I'm going to find out who. Catherine nodded and slipped from the room. Thorn looked at Elena. You're not in trouble for the card. Your heart was in the right place, even if your methods were questionable. But from now on, any contact with Dr. Whitlock goes through me. Understood? Yes, Alpha King. Elena's relief was palpable. Now leave us. Take David, Marcus, with you. I need a moment alone with our new pack problem. Elena hurried out. Marcus hesitated, looking between Thorn and Sarah with clear reluctance. That's an order, Beta, Thorn said. Marcus left, though he looked like it physically pained him to do so. Alone again, except for the unconscious Ash, Sarah found herself pinned by Thorn's silver stare. So, he said. Let's talk about David Chen. Sarah blinked. What about him? His real name is Marcus Blackwood. He's my second in command, my most trusted advisor, and apparently one of your regular clients. Thorn leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Tell me about your interactions with him. Everything. Her mind raced back through the appointments. He brought in Shadow, I guess that was him in wolf form, 4 times. Mostly bite wounds and scratches. Once a broken rib from what he said was a fall. A fight, Thorn corrected. Marcus is in charge of pack security. He fights often. He always paid in cash. Never wanted receipts. Asked a lot of questions about my background, my education, whether I had family in the area. As she said it, Sarah realized how suspicious it all sounded. He was vetting me. Very good. What else? She hesitated. He asked me once if I'd ever consider working with exotic animals. Said he knew people who might need a private veterinarian for sensitive cases. Thorn's eyebrows rose. And what did you say? I said I'd consider it, but I'd need more details about what I'd be treating and under what conditions. She wrapped her arms around herself. He never followed up. That was about 6 months ago. He was testing you, Thorn said. Seeing if you'd be open to working with us directly. But something must have changed his mind. He pushed off the wall. Someone in my pack has been planning this for at least 6 months. They had Elena plant the card 3 weeks ago. They attacked Ash 2 days after the last full moon, when security is traditionally lighter. They left him at your door knowing you'd call the number, knowing it would force my hand. To do what? To either accept you into the pack or kill you to protect our secrets. He said it so matter-of-factly that it took a moment for the words to register. The blood debt complicates things. It means I can't simply eliminate the threat you represent. But whoever orchestrated this knew that. They counted on it. Sarah's legs felt weak again. So what happens now? Now you become what Elena wanted, a pack asset. Thorn moved closer, and Sarah fought the urge to back away. You'll continue running your clinic, treating our people as you have been. But now you'll do it knowingly, with proper protection and resources. You'll be under my direct supervision. I don't want to be under anyone's supervision. I want my normal life back. Your normal life is gone, he said, not unkindly. Accept it, adapt to it, or what? You'll kill me? The words came out sharper than she intended, propelled by exhaustion and fear and 3 years of repressed instincts finally breaking free. Everyone keeps dancing around that threat. If you're going to do it, just do it. I'm too tired for games. Something flickered in his silver eyes. Respect, maybe. I'm not going to kill you, Dr. Whitlock. You're far too valuable alive. He glanced at his brother. And not just because of the blood debt. You've been keeping my people alive for 3 years without even knowing it. That kind of dedication is rare. I'm a veterinarian. It's literally my job. It's more than that. He moved to the examination table, gently checking Ash's breathing. Most humans would have reported unusual activity. Most would have gotten curious, started asking dangerous questions. You did neither. You just helped. Quietly, efficiently, without judgment. He looked at her again. That's why someone wanted you brought into the fold. Because you've already proven you're exactly what we need, a healer who doesn't ask questions we can't answer. I have a lot of questions now, Sarah said. I know. And I'll answer what I can. Thorn straightened. But first, I need you to answer one more question for me. The most important one. What? His silver eyes held hers, and she saw the weight of leadership in them. The burden of protecting hundreds of lives, human and wolf. Can you live with this? He asked quietly. Knowing what we are, what we can do. Knowing that you're bound to us now, whether you wanted it or not. Because once you're in, there's no going back. You'll be part of our world forever, with all the danger and strangeness that entails. Sarah thought about the past 3 years. The strange clients with their unusual injuries. The too intelligent eyes watching her work. The instincts she'd ignored because facing them would mean admitting something impossible. She thought about Ash, bleeding out on her doorstep. About the 30 others she'd treated without knowing what they really were. She thought about the oath she'd taken when she became a veterinarian. To use my knowledge and skills for the benefit of society through the protection of animal health and welfare. Were werewolves animals? Were they people? Did it matter? They needed help. That was all that mattered. I can live with it, she said. But I have conditions. Thorn's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. Of course you do. Name them. First, no more lying. I want to know what I'm dealing with, who you are, how your biology works, what injuries I should watch for. Agreed. Second, I want protection for my clinic. If I'm going to be treating your people officially, I need security. I can't have animal control or random hikers stumbling onto something they shouldn't see. Already planned. Third. She took a deep breath. Help me find who did this to Ash. Because if someone in your pack is willing to hurt him to manipulate me, they'll do it again. And next time, I might not be able to save whoever they choose as bait. This time Thorn's smile was genuine, showing teeth. You're not just a healer. You're a strategist. I watch a lot of crime dramas. He laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face from intimidating to almost handsome. Done. You have my word, Dr. Whitlock. Welcome to the Northern Pack. Before Sarah could respond, Ash stirred on the table. His eyes fluttered open, silver eyes, she noted, not the gold she'd seen in his wolf form. He looked confused, disoriented. Thorn? His voice was rough, young. What happened? You were attacked, Thorn said, his tone gentling. Someone stabbed you with a silver blade and left you at Dr. Whitlock's clinic. Do you remember anything? Ash's gaze drifted to Sarah, and his eyes widened. You're the one who... I remember your voice. You talked to me while you worked. Told me I'd be okay. He tried to sit up, winced, and Thorn steadied him. You saved my life. I did my job, Sarah said, but her voice was softer than she intended. More than that. Ash looked at his brother. She knew, Thorn. Maybe not consciously, but somewhere deep down, she knew what I was. And she saved me anyway. I know, Thorn said. Which is why she's under my protection now. No one touches her without going through me. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a blanket. Sarah felt it, the shift, the change. Her life as she'd known it was over. But maybe, she thought as she watched the two brothers, it wasn't an ending. Maybe it was just the beginning of something strange and dangerous and entirely new. Outside, as if sensing the moment's significance, 100 wolves began to howl. Stories like this are best read together. If you'd like a gentle reminder when the next part arrives, you can subscribe. It's just a soft way to stay close. If you'd rather wait, drop a few words in the comments so we know you're still with us. Chapter 3. The howling outside her clinic had finally stopped, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that it was less an ending and more a prelude to something worse. She stood at the window of her small office, the one attached to the clinic, watching as wolves repositioned themselves around her property. They'd formed a perimeter, she realized. Not just sitting anymore, but actively patrolling. Guarding her. They'll stay for the next 48 hours, Thorne said from the doorway, making her jump. She hadn't heard him approach, which was becoming a disturbing pattern. Rotating shifts. You won't be alone. You mean I'm a prisoner? I mean you're protected. He moved into the small office, which immediately felt smaller with his presence filling it. There's a difference. Is there? She turned to face him. Because from where I'm standing, I can't leave my own clinic without 100 wolves watching my every move. Would you prefer I leave you unguarded? When someone in my pack is willing to commit violence to manipulate you, and we don't know who? His silver eyes held hers. You wanted protection for your clinic. This is what that looks like. He had a point, damn him. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes, feeling the weight of the past few hours settling into her bones. How long? Until we find who attacked Ash. Until we're certain you're safe. He paused. Until I'm certain my pack won't tear you apart for knowing too much. The brutal honesty of that last statement made her stomach clench. Marcus wants what's safest for the pack. Right now, he's not sure what that is. Thorne moved to her desk, studying the chaos of paperwork and coffee-stained notes. But he'll come around. He always does. And if he doesn't? Then he'll follow my orders anyway. That's what a beta does. Thorne picked up a framed photo from her desk, Sarah with an older couple, all three smiling in front of a Christmas tree. Your parents? My aunt and uncle. They raised me after my parents died. She didn't know why she was telling him this. Maybe exhaustion had worn down her filters. Car accident when I was 7. He set the photo down carefully. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. She moved away from the window. What about you? You have 2 brothers, Ash and Marcus. Any other family I should know about? A sister. Lyra. She's studying abroad, Human University, Human Identity. She doesn't know about the attack yet. Something dark flickered across his face. I'm dreading that phone call. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. He seemed so controlled, so commanding. It was easy to forget he was a person under all that alpha authority. A person with family he loved and worried about. When did you last sleep? She asked, studying the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. I'll sleep when Ash is fully healed and the traitor is found. He met her gaze. When you're safe. The weight of that statement, when you're safe, settled over her like a blanket. She opened her mouth to respond, but movement outside caught her eye. The wolves were shifting, their attention turning east. Their body language changed, no longer relaxed and alert, but tense and aggressive. Something's wrong, she said. Thorne was at the window in an instant. She watched his expression harden into something terrifying. Get away from the windows, he said quietly. Now. What? Now, Sarah. The use of her first name, combined with the command in his voice, got her moving. She backed toward the interior door just as the first howl split the air. But this wasn't like the howls from earlier. This was different, aggressive, challenging. A threat. And it was answered by the wolves outside. The sound was deafening, primal, raising every hair on Sarah's arms. Stay inside, Thorne ordered, already moving toward the exit. Lock the doors behind me. Don't open them for anyone except me or Marcus. What's happening? He paused at the door, and the look he gave her made her blood run cold. War. Then he was gone, and she heard the sound of the front door slamming. She rushed to lock it, her hands shaking, and then pressed herself against the wall by the window where she could see without being easily seen. What she witnessed made her knees weak. Thorne stood in the center of her parking lot, and even from this distance, she could see the change overtaking him. His body rippled, bones reshaping, muscles expanding. Within seconds, a massive black wolf stood where the man had been, larger than any of the others, with silver eyes that glowed in the early morning light. And facing him, at the tree line, were more wolves. But these were different, reddish-brown coats instead of black, with eyes that gleamed amber rather than silver. The crimson fangs. She didn't know how she knew, but she did. At their center stood a wolf even larger than Thorn, rust-red coat, scars crisscrossing his muzzle, amber eyes fixed on Thorn with unmistakable hatred. For a long moment, neither side moved. The tension was so thick Sarah could feel it through the window. Then the red wolf threw back his head and howled, and hell broke loose. The two packs collided like thunder. Sarah watched in horror as wolves tore into each other, the sounds of snarling and yelping filling the air. Blood stained the ground. Bodies collided with brutal force. And in the center of it all, Thorn fought the red wolf with a ferocity that was both beautiful and terrifying. They moved like dancers, like enemies who knew each other's steps too well. The red wolf, Casimir, her mind supplied somehow, was larger, but Thorn was faster. When Casimir lunged, Thorn twisted aside, his teeth finding purchase in the other wolf's shoulder. When Thorn attacked, Casimir met him head-on, their bodies crashing together with earth-shaking force. Sarah couldn't look away. Couldn't breathe. This was what they really were, not the controlled, commanding man who'd stood in her office, but this. Pure predator. Pure violence. A wolf, one of Thorn's, she thought, went down hard near her window. She saw the wound on its side, deep and bleeding heavily. Her medical instincts kicked in before her common sense could stop her. She unlocked the door and ran outside. "What are you doing?" Marcus appeared beside her in human form, grabbing her arm. "Get back inside. That wolf needs help." She pointed to the fallen animal. "It's bleeding out. It's a war zone. It's my clinic." She jerked free, years of handling difficult pet owners giving her the authority to use. "You brought this fight here. Now let me do my job." She didn't wait for permission. She ran to the wounded wolf, dropping to her knees beside it. The animal's eyes, silver, she noted, fixed on her with something between fear and confusion. "I'm going to help you," she said, using the same calm voice she'd used with Ash. "Stay still." The wound was bad, deep claw marks across the ribs. She pressed her hands against it, applying pressure to slow the bleeding. The wolf whimpered but didn't snap at her. "Sarah." Thorn's voice, human again somehow, cut through the chaos. "What the hell are you doing?" "My job," she shouted back. "I need supplies, the blue medical kit, it's in the third cabinet on the left." She didn't look up to see if he complied. She was too focused on the wolf in front of her, on the blood seeping between her fingers. This one would need stitches, antibiotics, monitoring for infection. This one would live if she had anything to say about it. Footsteps approached, and the medical kit dropped beside her. But it wasn't Thorn, it was Elena, wide-eyed and scared but functional. "Tell me what to do," the young woman said. "Hold pressure here." Sarah guided Elena's hands to the wound. "Don't let up, no matter what." She grabbed supplies from the kit, working with the efficiency born of hundreds of emergency cases. Clean the wound, assess the damage, stop the bleeding. The steps were automatic, muscle memory taking over while her mind screamed about the battle still raging around them. Another wolf went down nearby, this one rust-red. Crimson fang. Sarah's hands stilled for just a moment. "Don't," Elena said quietly, reading her expression. "That's the enemy." "That's an injured animal," Sarah corrected. She finished wrapping the black wolf's wound with practiced speed. "Keep pressure on this. I'll be right back." Sarah, no. But she was already moving toward the red wolf. It saw her coming and tried to rise, to flee or fight, she wasn't sure which. But its back leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, and it collapsed with a yelp of pain. "Easy," Sarah murmured, approaching slowly. I'm not going to hurt you. The wolf's amber eyes followed her every movement, intelligent and afraid. She could see the calculation in them, trying to determine if she was threat or help. She knelt at what she hoped was a safe distance. Your leg is broken. You can't run on it, and fighting will only make it worse. Let me help. The wolf's lips pulled back, showing teeth. I know, she said softly. I'm human, and you don't trust humans. But I've helped your kind before. Ask Shadow, Marcus, he knows me. I treated him 4 times. Something shifted in the wolf's eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or just desperate hope. Slowly, carefully, Sarah moved closer. When the wolf didn't snap, she reached out and gently examined the broken leg. The wolf whimpered but held still. It's a clean break, she said, more to herself than the animal. I can splint it temporarily, but you'll need proper healing. Can you shift back to human form? The wolf stared at her. Right, stupid question. If you could, you probably would have already. She looked around for supplies, spotting a fallen branch that might work. Okay, this is going to hurt, but I need to immobilize the leg. She worked quickly, using the branch and strips of cloth from her already ruined scrubs to create a makeshift splint. The wolf remained eerily still, its eyes never leaving her face. There, she said finally. That should hold until. Step away from that wolf. The voice was deep, rough, and came from directly behind her. Sarah turned to find a man standing there, tall, scarred, with rust-red hair and amber eyes that matched the wolf's. He wore torn jeans and nothing else, his chest crisscrossed with old scars and fresh wounds. Casimir. In human form. She started. I know what you were doing. He moved past her, dropping to one knee beside the injured wolf. His hand touched its head with surprising gentleness. Thank you. She blinked. You're thanking me? My wolves are my responsibility. You probably saved this one's life. He studied her with those amber eyes, and she saw the intelligence behind them. The calculation. You're the human. The one who called the Northern Pack. It wasn't a question. Sarah Whitlock. And yes. Casimir Volkov. Alpha of the Crimson Fangs. He looked toward where Thorn stood in human form now, watching them with barely contained fury. And Thorn Blackwood's new problem. I'm nobody's problem, Sarah said, surprising herself. I'm a veterinarian trying to keep injured animals alive. We're not animals. Then stop acting like them. The words were out before she could stop them, propelled by exhaustion and fear and the sheer insanity of treating werewolves in her parking lot while they tore each other apart. You want to fight? Fine. But do it somewhere else. This is my clinic, and I won't have it turned into a battlefield. Silence fell over the parking lot. Even the wolves who'd been fighting stopped, turning to stare at the human who just scolded 2 alpha werewolves like naughty children. Casimir laughed. It was a genuine sound, surprised and almost delighted. She has fire, Blackwood. I can see why you're keeping her. I'm not keeping her, Thorn growled, moving closer. She's under my protection because she saved my brother's life. Is that what you're calling it? Casimir stood, towering over Sarah but somehow less intimidating than Thorn despite the size difference. Interesting. Because from where I stand, it looks like something else entirely. Say what you came to say, Volkov. Then get off my territory. Your territory? Casimir's smile sharpened. This is neutral ground, has been for 50 years. Or have you forgotten the treaty? The treaty, Thorn said coldly, doesn't protect those who attack first. We didn't attack. We responded to a summons, the same summons you answered. Casimir gestured to Sarah. The Alpha King's emergency line was triggered. Pack law says any recognized pack can respond to such a call. We have as much right to be here as you do. Sarah's mind reeled. Wait, you heard the call too? Every pack within 200 miles heard it, Casimir said. That's what happens when you use the emergency line. It's not just a phone call, it's a magical beacon, a cry for help that every wolf can feel in their bones. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. He looked at Thorn. Which makes me wonder why one of your wolves gave her that number. And why someone wanted both our packs summoned to this exact location. The implication hung in the air like poison. You think this was a setup, Sarah said slowly. Someone wanted both packs here. Wanted us to fight. Very good, Dr. Whitlock. Casimir's amber eyes glinted. Someone attacked Thorn's brother, left him at your door, and ensured you'd make that call. They knew we'd both respond. They knew we'd clash over you, a human who knows too much about our world. He turned back to Thorn. The question is, who benefits from our packs tearing each other apart? Thorn's expression was stone. Get your wolves and leave. We'll investigate this separately. Will we? Casimir moved closer, and Sarah found herself between two apex predators sizing each other up for dominance. Or will we keep dancing around the real issue while our enemy laughs? The real issue is that you brought your pack onto neutral ground and started a fight. You had 100 wolves surrounding this clinic. What did you expect me to think? That I was protecting an asset. An asset? Casimir's laugh was sharp. Is that what you call it when you can't stop looking at her? When every wolf in your pack can smell the mate bond forming? The world seemed to stop. Sarah looked at Thorn, saw the fury and something else in his silver eyes. Something that looked almost like panic. There is no mate bond, Thorn said, his voice deadly quiet. Isn't there? Casimir's smile was cruel now. I can smell it on you, Blackwood. Every wolf here can. The great Alpha King, brought low by a human female who doesn't even know what she is to you. Casimir. Does she know? Casimir turned to Sarah. Has he told you what it means when an alpha starts to bond with someone? How it makes him vulnerable? How his pack will see it as weakness? Stop, Thorn's voice cracked like a whip. But Casimir was on a roll now, his words cutting. A human mate would be bad enough. But a human who's embedded herself in pack politics, who holds blood debts and knows our secrets? That's not just weakness, Blackwood. That's a liability that will tear your pack apart from the inside. Get out. Thorn's eyes were glowing now, silver bleeding into gold. The sign of a wolf barely maintaining human form. Get out before I forget the treaties and rip out your throat. For a moment, Sarah thought Casimir would push further. But something in Thorn's expression must have convinced him he'd gone far enough. We're leaving, Casimir said. But this conversation isn't over. He looked at Sarah one more time. Be careful, Dr. Whitlock. You're standing at the center of a storm, and you don't even know who's controlling the winds. He shifted, faster than Thorn had, with less visible transformation, and suddenly a massive rust-red wolf stood in his place. He threw back his head and howled, and his pack began retreating, including the injured wolf Sarah had treated. Within minutes, the crimson fangs were gone, disappearing into the tree line like they'd never been there. Leaving Sarah alone with Thorn's pack in the ruins of what had been her peaceful morning. She looked around at the destruction, blood on the ground, torn earth, injured wolves being tended by others. Elena still knelt by the first wolf Sarah had treated, her hands steady despite the tears on her face. Someone get a cleanup crew, Marcus called, appearing at Thorn's side. And healers for the injured. Move. Wolves scattered to follow orders, some shifting to human form to help the others. Sarah stood frozen in the center of it all, her scrubs soaked with blood, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Sarah. Thorn's voice, soft now. Close. She looked up at him, this man, this wolf, who might be developing a mate bond with her, whatever that meant. Who'd brought war to her doorstep. Who'd also protected her, defended her, acknowledged the debt he owed her. Is it true, she asked. What he said about a mate bond? Thorn's jaw tightened. It's complicated. Complicated how? Wolves bond differently than humans. We don't fall in love slowly, we recognize our mates instantly, like finding the other half of ourselves. It's biological, magical, beyond our control. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so human it was jarring. But it's rare. Most wolves never find their true mate. And when we do, when you do, everything changes. He met her eyes, and she saw the conflict in them. The bond makes us stronger, but also vulnerable. Our mates become our weakness, our liability. Enemies know this. They use it against us. And you think. She couldn't finish the sentence. I don't know what I think, he said, and for the first time since she'd met him, he sounded unsure. I feel drawn to you in a way I can't explain. Protective, possessive, desperate to keep you safe. It could be gratitude for saving Ash. It could be respect for your skills. Or it could be the beginning of a mate bond that will destroy everything I've built. The honesty of it stole her breath. What do we do? We ignore it. The certainty was back in his voice. We focus on finding who's manipulating us, who hurt Ash, who wants our packs at war. We keep you safe and maintain the blood debt. Anything else is too dangerous. For who? For everyone. He stepped back, putting distance between them. Especially you. Before she could respond, Marcus jogged over. Thorn, we have a problem. Another one? I've been examining the injured wolves. Marcus's expression was grim. 3 of them, 2 of ours, 1 crimson fang, have old scars consistent with silver poisoning. Not from this fight. From weeks or months ago. Sarah's medical instincts kicked in again. Let me see. She followed Marcus to where the injured wolves were being tended. True to his word, several bore distinctive scarring, the kind of tissue damage that came from silver burning through flesh. These are all around the same age, she said, examining the patterns. 3 to 4 months old, I'd say. And look at the placement, shoulders, flanks, hindquarters. These aren't random injuries. What are you saying? Thorn asked. She stood, wiping bloody hands on her already ruined scrubs. I'm saying someone's been hunting wolves systematically. Using silver weapons, targeting non-lethal areas to cause pain and tracking injuries without immediate death. She looked between the 2 men. Someone's been studying you. Learning your patterns, your territories, your weaknesses. For what purpose? Marcus demanded. I don't know. But whoever attacked Ash, whoever left that business card, whoever wanted your packs fighting in my parking lot, she gestured to the scarred wolves. They've been planning this for months. Maybe longer. Thorn's expression went dark. This isn't just about pack politics or territory disputes. No, Sarah agreed. This is bigger. Someone's playing a long game, and we're all pieces on their board. The 3 of them stood in silence, surrounded by injured wolves and the aftermath of violence, while the morning sun climbed higher in the sky. And somewhere, Sarah knew, their enemy was watching and waiting to make their next move. She was in over her head. She knew that. But as she looked at the wounded animals, werewolves, around her, she also knew she couldn't walk away. Not now. Maybe not ever. Even if it meant standing at the center of a war she didn't understand, with an alpha king who might be bonding with her against his will, and an enemy who'd been hunting his kind for months. She was committed now. For better or worse. We need to talk to the wounded, she said. All of them. Document every old injury, every silver scar, every suspicious pattern. If someone's been hunting your people, we need to know when, where, and how. Agreed, Thorn said. Marcus, organize the interviews. Elena, help Dr. Whitlock examine the wounded, both packs wolves, if any Crimson Fangs stayed behind. On it, Elena said, appearing at Sarah's side. As they moved to begin the grim work of documentation, Sarah caught Thorn watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Concern mixed with something warmer, something that made her heart skip despite everything. Mate Bond, her mind whispered. He thinks you might be his mate. She pushed the thought away. There were more important things to worry about right now. But as she worked through the morning, treating wounds and cataloging evidence of a conspiracy she didn't fully understand, she couldn't quite shake the feeling of Thorne's silver eyes following her every move. Or the strange warmth that bloomed in her chest every time their eyes met across the bloody parking lot. Thank you for reading this far. You can subscribe if you'd like the next chapter to find you quietly, no rush, no pressure. And if you'd rather not, leave a kind word in the comments so we know you're still part of our circle. Chapter 4. The sun had climbed to its zenith by the time Sarah finished examining the last of the wounded wolves. Her hands were steady despite her exhaustion. Years of veterinary training had taught her to function long past the point where her body screamed for rest. But her mind was another matter entirely. She sat on the clinic steps, staring at the blood-stained parking lot while her thoughts raced in circles. The pattern of silver scarring on the wolves had been unmistakable. Someone had been hunting them for months, learning their vulnerabilities, studying their movements. And now that same someone had orchestrated events to bring both packs to her doorstep. Why? You should eat something. Elena appeared beside her, holding out a sandwich that looked like it had been hastily assembled from whatever was in Sarah's break room fridge. You've been working for 6 hours straight. Had it been that long? Sarah took the sandwich mechanically, her mind still turning over the evidence. The scarring patterns, she said. They're too consistent. Whoever's doing this knows exactly where to strike to cause maximum pain without killing. I know. Elena sat down beside her, exhaustion written in every line of her young face. Marcus has been coordinating with the Crimson Fangs. They've had similar attacks. Wolves found injured with silver weapons, always surviving but always scarred. How many? 15 confirmed cases across both packs in the last 4 months. Elena's voice dropped. And those are just the ones who reported it. Some wolves, they don't like to admit weakness. Sarah's stomach churned. 15 wolves, systematically hunted and injured. And no one had connected the pattern until now. There's something else, Elena continued, her voice hesitant. Some of the older pack members are talking. They say this has happened before. Sarah's head snapped up. What do you mean, before? About 30 years ago. Wolves started turning up injured with silver wounds. The attacks went on for almost a year before they suddenly stopped. Elena met her eyes. Right around the time the pack's healer died. The sandwich fell from Sarah's hands. What was the healer's name, she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. I don't remember. But Marcus would know. He's old enough to remember that time. Elena frowned. Why? What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sarah stood on shaking legs. Where's Thorne? In your office, I think. Sarah, what? But she was already moving, her heart pounding against her ribs. She burst through the clinic doors and nearly collided with Marcus in the hallway. Where's Thorne? She demanded. Marcus studied her face, his expression sharpening. What's happened? I need to talk to him. Now. He's on a conference call with the other pack alphas. Whatever this is can wait. No, it can't. Sarah pushed past him, ignoring his sound of protest. She threw open her office door to find Thorne standing at her window, phone pressed to his ear. He turned at her entrance, irritation flashing across his face. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, then ended the call. What's so urgent that you? What was your healer's name? The words burst out of her. The one from 30 years ago. What was her name? Thorne's eyes narrowed. How do you know about her? Just answer the question. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then, Margaret. Margaret Whitlock. She served the Northern Pack for 20 years before he stopped, and his face went very still. Whitlock. She was my grandmother. Sarah's voice shook. My father's mother. I never knew her, she died before I was born. But I found her journals 6 months ago, hidden in my aunt's attic when we were clearing out old boxes. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus appeared in the doorway, and from his expression, he'd heard everything. That's impossible. Margaret had no living family. When she died, there was no one to. My father left the pack when he was 18, Sarah said. The pieces were falling into place now, a puzzle she hadn't even known existed. My aunt mentioned it once when I was young, said he ran away from home, cut off all contact with his mother. They only reconnected once, briefly, right before I was born. Then he and my mother died in the car accident, and my aunt raised me with no connection to his side of the family. Jesus, Marcus breathed. You're Margaret's granddaughter. And you didn't know. Thorne's voice was soft, dangerous. All this time, you've been treating our wolves with her techniques, and you didn't know who she was to us. I didn't even know werewolves were real until this morning. Sarah's voice rose with a mix of frustration and fear. I found her journals and thought she was just eccentric, writing about wolves and pack healing and treatments that didn't match anything in my veterinary textbooks. I thought they were metaphors, or maybe she worked with some kind of wolf sanctuary. She moved to her desk, pulling open the bottom drawer. Inside, wrapped in cloth, were 3 leather-bound journals. She'd been keeping them at the clinic, reading them during slow afternoons, trying to make sense of her grandmother's cryptic notes. She held them out to Thorne with trembling hands. I'd been using her techniques for the past 6 months. The way she described treating puncture wounds, broken bones, the special attention to silver poisoning, I thought I was just learning alternative veterinary methods. I didn't understand what I was really learning. Thorne took the journals like they were made of glass. He opened the first one, and even from across the desk, Sarah could see the neat handwriting that matched her grandmother's signature on old letters her aunt had kept. This is her hand, he said quietly. These are definitely Margaret's journals. He looked up at her, and something shifted in his expression. Where are the rest? The rest? Margaret kept meticulous records. Years' worth. These 3 only cover a few months of her work. His grip on the journals tightened. Where are the others? I don't know. These were all I found. A cold feeling spread through Sarah's chest. You think someone took them? I think Margaret was murdered to silence what she knew, Thorne said bluntly. And I think whoever killed her made sure her knowledge died with her, except for these 3 journals that somehow survived. Marcus stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. If Sarah is Margaret's granddaughter, and she's been using the journals to treat our wolves, then whoever wanted Margaret dead will want Sarah dead too, Thorne finished. His silver eyes locked on hers. That's what this has been about from the beginning. Not pack politics or territory disputes. Someone knew who you were, knew you had the journals, and they'd been watching you. Waiting for you to reveal yourself as a healer. The room spun. Sarah gripped the edge of her desk for support. The business card. You said someone in your pack left it for me. Elena admitted she left it, Marcus said. But she claimed it was her idea, that she wanted to bring you into the fold because we needed a healer. What if someone put her up to it? Sarah's mind raced ahead, connecting dots she wished would stay separate. What if they convinced her it was her idea, while really they were setting a trap? Thorne was already moving to the door. Elena. Get in here. Now. The young woman appeared within seconds, her face pale. What's wrong? The business card, Thorne said. Tell me exactly how you decided to leave it for Dr. Whitlock. I told you. Some of us had been talking about how we needed a healer, and I knew she'd been treating our wolves, so I thought. Who suggested it first? Thorne's voice was gentle but unyielding. Think carefully, Elena. Who first mentioned that Dr. Whitlock might be able to help the pack? Elena's brow furrowed. It was. I think it was David. Marcus. She looked at the beta. You said something about how good she was, how she'd treated you multiple times without ever reporting unusual activity. Marcus's expression went carefully blank. I may have mentioned her skills, but I never suggested giving her the Alpha King's emergency line. No, but... Elena trailed off, confusion and fear warring on her face. Someone did. I remember now. At the pack meeting last month, someone brought up the idea of having a human healer again. They said it had worked well in the past, before Margaret died. They said Dr. Whitlock showed promise. Who? Thorne demanded. Elena, who said this? I don't remember. It was a general discussion, lots of people talking. Tears formed in her eyes. I thought it was my idea to leave the card. I was so sure it was my idea. Sarah felt ice in her veins. Someone planted the suggestion. Made sure Elena would think she came up with it on her own. We have wolves who can do that, Marcus admitted grimly. Influence, not quite mind control, but close enough. If someone wanted Elena to leave that card without questioning why, they could have nudged her thoughts in that direction. And I walked right into it. Elena's voice broke. I put Sarah in danger. I gave her the number that summoned both packs. I did exactly what they wanted. It's not your fault, Sarah said, surprising herself. You were manipulated. We all were. But why? Marcus looked between Thorne and Sarah. If the goal was to expose Sarah as a healer and kill her, why this elaborate setup? Why not just attack her directly? Because they needed proof, Thorne said slowly. They needed to know for certain that she had Margaret's knowledge. Anyone can treat a wounded animal, but using specific techniques that only a pack healer would know, that's confirmation. And I confirmed it, Sarah whispered. When I treated Ash. When I used the silver poisoning protocols from the journals. When I worked on those wounded wolves in the parking lot with both packs watching. She looked up at Thorne. I showed them exactly what I could do. Which means they'll come for you now. Thorne's jaw tightened. They know you're Margaret's successor, whether you claim the title or not. You're a threat to whatever they're planning. What are they planning? Sarah demanded. Why does a healer matter so much? It was Marcus who answered, his voice heavy with old knowledge. Because a pack without a healer is vulnerable. We're stronger than humans, we heal faster, but silver can kill us. Poison can kill us. Without someone who understands how to treat those injuries, without someone who can keep our healing knowledge alive, he met her eyes. We're just animals waiting to be hunted. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a shroud. My grandmother, Sarah said. She was killed because someone wanted the packs vulnerable. Yes, Thorne confirmed. And for 30 years, we've struggled without a healer. Some packs adapted better than others, but none of us are as strong as we were when Margaret was alive. Our injuries take longer to heal. Wolves die from wounds that should be survivable. We've lost knowledge that took centuries to accumulate. Until I started treating your wolves without even knowing what I was doing. Someone in my pack has been using my people as chess pieces in a game we didn't even know we were playing. He looked at his beta. Tell me how I'm supposed to be rational about that. Marcus had no answer. A knock on the door interrupted the tense silence. Catherine entered without waiting for permission, her expression grave. Thorne, we have a problem. Several problems, actually. She glanced at the others. This should probably be private. Everyone here needs to know, Thorne said. Speak. Catherine took a breath. The pack is in chaos. Rumors are spreading about Dr. Whitlock being Margaret's granddaughter. Half the wolves want her recognized as pack healer immediately. The other half think she's a security risk who should be eliminated before she can cause more damage. She is pack healer, Thorne said firmly. By blood, by knowledge, and by the blood debt she's owed. Anyone who challenges that challenges me. That's the second problem. Catherine's voice softened. They're already challenging you. Not openly, not yet, but there's talk. About how you're compromised. About the mate bond that's forming. About how you're making decisions based on attraction rather than pack security. Sarah saw Thorne's jaw tighten. The mate bond is undeniable, Catherine interrupted gently. Every wolf with decent senses can detect it, Thorne. It's getting stronger by the hour. By tomorrow, it'll be obvious to anyone who looks at you two together. She glanced at Sarah with something like sympathy. I'm sorry, Dr. Whitlock. I know this isn't what you wanted. What I wanted, Sarah said, her voice surprisingly steady, stopped mattering the moment I found those journals. The moment I became what my grandmother was. She stood, meeting Thorne's gaze directly. If I'm going to be a target anyway, I might as well make it count. I want to be your pack healer. Officially. Sarah, you don't understand what you're offering. Don't I? She moved around the desk, standing close enough to see the silver flecks in his eyes. You said a healer makes the pack stronger. You said you've been vulnerable without one. Well, I have the knowledge. I have the journals. And apparently, I have the bloodline. She took a breath. Use me. Let me finish what my grandmother started. It will make you a permanent target, Thorne said quietly. The enemy who killed her will come for you. They won't stop until you're dead. They're already coming for me. At least this way, I'm not facing them alone. She glanced at the others, Marcus with his calculating expression, Catherine with her knowing eyes, Elena still standing in the corner looking devastated. If I'm going to survive this, I need the pack's protection. And if the pack is going to accept me, I need to give them something in return. Your life, Thorne said. You'd be offering your life. My grandmother did, Sarah replied. And from what you've said, she made a difference. Maybe I can too. For a long moment, Thorne just looked at her. She saw the conflict in his eyes, the alpha who wanted to protect his pack warring with the wolf who was developing feelings he couldn't control. Finally, he turned to Catherine. Summon the council. Tell them we're recognizing Sarah Whitlock as pack healer, by blood right and pack need. Any wolf who objects can take it up with me personally. That's going to cause problems, Marcus warned. Good. Let them come. Thorne's voice hardened. We've been dancing around this enemy for too long. Time to force them into the open. By using Sarah as bait? Marcus's disapproval was clear. By giving her the protection she deserves and daring anyone to challenge it. Thorne met his beta's eyes. Margaret was killed because no one was watching closely enough. Because whoever wanted her dead could act without being observed. That won't happen again. You can't protect her every moment of every day, Marcus argued. No. But the pack can. Thorne gestured to Elena. You wanted to bring her into the fold. Now's your chance to do it right. Organize a guard rotation, wolves she's treated, wolves who owe her their lives. Make sure she's never alone, never vulnerable. Elena nodded eagerly, relief flooding her face. I can do that. I'll start immediately. Good. Thorne turned back to Sarah. You'll continue running your clinic, but you'll also treat pack members as needed. I'll provide funding for any specialized equipment or supplies. Your payment will be pack protection and access to resources that will keep you safe. That's not necessary. It's absolutely necessary. His voice softened slightly. You're taking on a role that cost your grandmother her life. The least I can do is make sure you have every possible advantage. And the mate bond? The question came from Catherine. You can't just ignore it, Thorne. The pack will expect. The pack will expect me to do my duty. Thorne's expression closed off. Which is exactly what I'm doing. Sarah is pack healer. That's all that matters right now. But Sarah saw the lie in his eyes. Saw the way his gaze kept drifting to her, the tension in his shoulders when she moved. Whatever this mate bond was, he felt it too. And he was terrified of it. I'll prepare the recognition ceremony, Catherine said, breaking the charged silence. It should be done at moonrise, traditional timing for a healer's initiation. Fine. Marcus, I want a full investigation into every pack member who was present when Margaret died. Cross-reference with wolves who have influencing abilities. And get me a list of anyone who's been absent during the silver poisoning incidents. That's a lot of wolves to investigate, Marcus said. Then you'd better get started. Thorne handed him the journals. These might help. Margaret may have recorded something useful before she died. Marcus took the journals reluctantly. And what will you be doing? Keeping Dr. Whitlock alive until moonrise. Thorne looked at Sarah. You're staying in this clinic until the ceremony. Elena will organize the guard. I'll be personally overseeing security. You don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice brooked no argument. You're pack now, whether the ceremony has happened or not. And I protect what's mine. The possessive note in his voice made something warm curl in Sarah's stomach. Something that had no business being there given the circumstances. Everyone out, Thorne ordered. I need to speak with Dr. Whitlock alone. The others filed out, Marcus shooting Sarah a look she couldn't quite interpret. When the door closed, leaving them alone in her small office, the air seemed to thicken. You don't have to do this, Thorne said quietly. I can find another way to protect you. You don't have to become pack healer. Yes, I do. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Not just because I need protection. Because it's the right thing to do. My grandmother gave her life for your pack. Maybe I can honor that by finishing what she started. You barely knew her. No. But I know what she believed in. It's in every page of those journals, the care she took with each wolf, the dedication to keeping this knowledge alive. She didn't just treat injuries. She loved your people. Sarah's voice caught slightly. I can understand that. I've been doing the same thing for 3 years without knowing it. Thorne moved closer, and she caught his scent, pine and night air and something wild she couldn't name. This mate bond, he said. I need you to understand what it means. It's not just attraction or affection. It's a biological imperative, a magical connection that forms between wolves and their perfect match. Once it fully manifests, breaking it would destroy us both. Then don't break it, Sarah said, the words out before she could stop them. His eyes widened slightly. You don't know what you're saying. Don't I? She took a step closer, narrowing the distance between them. I've felt it too, Thorne. Since you walked into my clinic this morning. This pull, this certainty that you're important, that you matter in a way I can't explain. I thought I was going crazy. You're human. The bond shouldn't affect you. Maybe I'm not as human as everyone thinks. She gestured to the journals Marcus had taken. My father left the pack, but he was born into it. That means I have wolf blood in me, doesn't it? Diluted, dormant maybe, but there? Thorne's expression shifted to something she couldn't read. That's possible. Margaret was a wolf, though not an alpha bloodline. Your father would have inherited that, even if he never shifted. And you. And I might have just enough wolf in me to feel a mate bond. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place. That's why I've always felt comfortable around wolves. Why I chose to work with them. Why I never questioned the too intelligent eyes or the too fast healing. Or why you're willing to risk your life to become pack healer, Thorne added softly. You've been drawn to pack life your whole life without knowing why. They stood in silence, the weight of revelation settling between them. What happens now? Sarah asked. Now we keep you alive until moonrise. Then we make you officially pack healer and dare anyone to challenge it. His silver eyes held hers. And we figure out who wants healers dead before they can finish what they started 30 years ago. And the mate bond? We survive first. Figure out the rest later. But his hand lifted, almost unconsciously, to brush a strand of hair from her face. The touch was gentle, reverent, and sent electricity racing down her spine. One crisis at a time. Sarah caught his hand before he could pull away, pressing it against her cheek. Thank you. For protecting me. For believing me. Thank you for saving my brother. His thumb stroked across her cheekbone. And for being brave enough to step into a legacy that killed the last person who held it. The moment stretched between them, charged and fragile. Sarah had the sudden, overwhelming urge to kiss him, to see if the mate bond felt as powerful as it seemed. But a knock on the door shattered the spell. Alpha King, Elena's voice came from the other side. The guard rotation is organized. And Marcus says there's something in the journals you need to see. Immediately. Thorn pulled back, the Alpha's mask sliding into place. We're coming. He opened the door to find Elena, Marcus, and Catherine waiting in the hallway, all wearing expressions of barely concealed urgency. What did you find? Thorn demanded. Marcus held up one of the journals, open to a page near the end. Margaret knew she was in danger. She documented it all, the threats, the attacks, the wolves who were poisoned with silver. She even suspected who was behind it. Who? Sarah asked, her heart racing. Marcus met her eyes, and the sympathy there made her stomach drop. She suspected it was someone close to the Alpha King at the time. Someone with access to Pack's secrets and the authority to move without suspicion. He turned the journal so they could see the last entry, Margaret's handwriting shakier than in previous pages. If anything happens to me, know this, the threat is not external. It comes from within, from someone who has twisted their love for the Pack into something dark and possessive. They believe wolves should remain separate from humans, that any integration is contamination. They will stop at nothing to ensure our kind remains isolated, even if it means destroying the very wolves they claim to protect. I fear my time is running out. But perhaps my son's daughter will be braver than I am. Perhaps she will finish what I started. To my granddaughter Sarah, if you ever read this, run, hide, and pray they never find you. Or stand, fight, and become the healer our people need. The choice, as always, is yours. Sarah stared at the words, her grandmother's final message written decades before she was born. A warning and a challenge, wrapped in love and fear. She knew, Sarah whispered. She knew about me before I even existed. Seers exist among wolves, Catherine said softly. Not common, but not unheard of. Margaret may have seen glimpses of the future, enough to know her bloodline would continue even after she was gone. Which means the enemy might have known too, Thorn said grimly. They might have been watching for you your entire life, waiting for you to reveal yourself. The implications of that settled over Sarah like a weight. Her entire life, marked by an enemy she'd never known existed. Every choice she'd made, every step that led her to this clinic at the edge of Blackwood Forest, had any of it been truly her own? Or had she been guided, manipulated, pushed toward this moment? It doesn't matter, she said, surprised by the strength in her own voice. Whether they've been watching or not, whether this was destiny or manipulation, I'm here now. I have the knowledge. I have the bloodline. She looked at Thorn. And I have the Pack's protection, if you'll give it. You have it, Thorn said without hesitation. Until my last breath, you have it. The vow hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning beyond simple words. A promise from an alpha to his healer. From a wolf to his potential mate. From a man to a woman who'd stumbled into his world and somehow become essential to it. Then let's prepare for the ceremony, Sarah said. And pray we survive long enough to see moonrise. Because somewhere out there, an enemy who'd waited 30 years was finally making their move. And this time, they wouldn't stop until either Sarah was dead, or the truth was finally revealed. The end. Thank you for listening to the end of this story. I would like to know where you are watching or listening from. Please comment on your country below. Let's say hi to you.